What is up, you guys? This is All Day Any Day 1 on the PS4, and I'm going to be giving you a thoughts and review video for Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Just like every other video or review video that I've done, I'll be going over things such as graphics and textures, combat and movement, progression and gearing, the environment, which is basically your NPCs and enemies, your storyline and activities, like your outside of the storyline, like side missions and all that, soundtrack and in-game music, and that's pretty much it. So if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and leave a like, and don't forget to hit that sub if you haven't already. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know down in the comment section. And yeah, so now let's go ahead and get started. First off is graphics and textures. So graphics in this game isn't all too bad, especially with the fact that this is a massive world. It was pretty, to me, it was a pretty much a huge surprise with how well the game looked and ran without losing a ton of frames or really, I mean, it did lose a few frames here and there, but it didn't really lose too much to where I was like, oh my gosh, this is bad, you know? So the textures as well is really nice when it comes to things like the open sea, buildings, and even the NPCs as well looks pretty good. I really do admire with how great the game looks during the day and night cycle as well, making it to where you can take a picture pretty much anywhere and the game would look really nice. Next up, we have combat and movement. The combat in this game is a fun button mashing experience with dodge and parry mechanics like in the original Assassin's Creed games. I really do like the fact that you have a solid amount of weapon types to choose from as well, things like the heavy axe, daggers, sword, heavy mace, staff, spear, and a bow. They all play very differently, and that's what makes it fun in their own way. I felt that with combat it was very smooth, but movement on the other hand, now movement was just a little bit wonky, especially when riding the horse. Now, I'm not saying it was wonky throughout the whole entire game, but it had its moments. Aside from that, I think the combat was pretty amazing and movement was pretty solid. Also, I really do enjoy Spartan kicking enemies off high areas. So now onto progression and gearing. The progression in this game is fairly simple but very grindy, which is a good thing because it gives you more to do as well as looking forward to progress. You can level up with your character through many different things like the storyline, side missions, or other sorts of activities around the world. Obtaining gear is also very simple because you can get gear pretty much from anywhere and everywhere. So having to replace your blue or your purpley gear equipment won't be much of an issue. Your legendaries will be kind of hard to replace because, I mean, it's not that you need to wear legendaries anyways, it's just that having a full set of legendaries gives you that extra perk, and it's nice. But yeah, you don't necessarily have to have all legendaries, which is a good thing because not everyone's going to want to wear all legendaries. Purples generally have the higher amount of stats anyways if you're just looking for the better stats. But anyways, you also have 5 different stats, 2 of them being for your defensive purposes, which is your health and armor, and then 3 of them being for your ability damage, which is your hunter damage, warrior damage, and assassin damage. I think it was a great concept of having these specific stats to have the player choose what they want to focus on. For example, some people may want to play using only bows, so they'd focus primarily on the hunter tree and the hunter damage. Some people may want to go headfirst into battle, so they would primarily focus on the warrior abilities and warrior damage. And then you have other people who would want to focus more on being sneaky, so they would focus all on assassin, and then you can just mix it all up. Some people even would play more tanky, and that means they would have more armor and more health. Something I really think they should have added though is an actual stats sheet tab. So that way you could see what your stats are, like your crit chance or your crit damage, because you never really know how much you actually have or your extra damage. You don't know how much you're actually getting aside from looking at your gear and whatnot. I think that would have been a nice addition, but aside from that, the gearing and progression in this game is really fun, and the grind is not bad at all. The only real grind is having to farm out all the materials and all your drachmae.
You made it.
Of course I did.
Varnavas was ready to go after you again.
Like he said, it's the thought that counts, right?
Next up is the environment. So what the environment is basically just the NPCs and enemies. And a few things I did like about the NPCs is that the voice acting on them was great, or I wouldn't say great, but it was pretty good. It's pretty solid. Some of them didn't really match the character, but overall the voice acting in general, just for each character, especially your main character, wasn't too bad at all. It's pretty solid. Now, something I did get kind of annoyed from was the fact that there's only like a total of maybe 5 male NPCs, 5 female NPCs, and the 3 children NPCs that was used all around the world. I mean, I suppose it makes sense because they're not the main focus, but you know, it would have been a little bit more nice if there were more, like, I guess more different faces, different you know, different heights, different weights, different hair. But I mean, you can still have your generic NPCs, but just I kind of wish there was a little bit more options. Also, a lot of times when you talk to the NPCs, sometimes what they say doesn't match what they're doing. Like, some of them will over exaggerate their movement when talking to you. Now, characters that mattered, that were part of the storyline, all had their own look, aside from the majority of the Spartans looking like Leonidas from the 300 movie. I thought the designers did a fantastic job with the character designs. Now, the enemies, I didn't have much of a problem with them. They weren't hard to fight, but also they weren't easy at first, especially when they're a little bit over your level, like 2 or 3 levels higher than you. They kind of become a little difficult. I do think it is a bit too easy though when it comes to getting stealth kills on enemies, or even just hiding away from an enemy in a small bush, because that will basically just keep you from getting caught. Hiding in something really small, in the open daylight, you know, you don't get caught. Something I do wish they kept with enemies is when you do kill one of the cultists, you'd have this little cutscene dialogue going on between both you and the cultists before you finish them. I think that would have been pretty interesting. So the storyline to me is really great because one, it keeps me wanting more. Two, character development between your character and others are pretty solid. And three, I enjoy the fact that you have choices and they can affect your story. The story is also very easy to follow as well. For being, you know, a very massive map, you can pretty much easily navigate your way through with your storyline. You do have to be a certain level to do certain things, but other than that, I mean, I think it was fairly easy. For the activities portion of this game, I had probably spent at least 50 hours just in this first week of the game being released, and I still haven't completed the story. So that already kind of tells you that the activities outside the storyline is pretty fun, and you know, you have a lot to do. You have things such as conquest battles, which is basically a war between Sparta and Athens, and you choose whether you want to play or fight for one or the other. And then you have the arena, which allows you to fight waves of enemies or even a mercenary. You have the sea battles, where you fight on your boats or your giant battleships, I guess. And then you have a ton of side missions, and there's a ton of exploring that can be done as well. Content-wise, this game has enough to keep you playing for at the very least 50 or more hours. the last thing I'll be going over is music. So let's start off with the main menu. What I love about most games is you'll know, or sometimes you'll know, when the game will be good if it has a pretty solid musical score in the main menu. And well, with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, it has a pretty awesome musical score that is its own original type of thing, but to me, it was something that was easily forgotten. Now, I'm not saying the music is bad at all, but it just wasn't something memorable to me like the Spider-Man theme or even an older game like Skyrim. I guess what I'm trying to say is the intro music just wasn't powerful enough for me to make it more memorable. So the in-game music, though, I thought was pretty great. It fit perfectly well with the area you were in or in the certain situations you were in. Sometimes the music would be a bit off, but all in all, it works pretty well. So that is basically everything I wanted to cover over with this game on this review. Like I said before, if this helped you out at all with your decision on whether you wanted to get this game or not, or you just wanted to watch a review, go ahead and leave a like, comment, and subscribe. This is All Day New Day 1 on the PS4. Have a good day, good night, and peace.